Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Let's welcome our main speaker, Lee.
My name is Lee, and I am an alcoholic. First of all, I'd like to thank Jack for giving me the privilege of sharing my experience, strength, and hope, and I always walk away from the mic. So, I'll have to get rid of the resentment of having to stay away from Jack's fixing our cars. Through the years, I'd go down there with my husband, and we'd have to leave the car there, but I wouldn't get out of the car because his damn son, the dogs, he had pit bulls. And I'd go to step out, and there they come. So, for years, we would bring the cars down there, but that had to stop. I was so afraid of pit bulls. Anyway, I'm up here to share my experience, strength, and hope with you. And a lot of you know me, or knew me way back when. And I'm a real alcoholic. I am far and few between whatever's going on here tonight. And anyway, I was born in Detroit, and I always shared that that's the reason why 50% of the reason why I'm an alcoholic. Hated that town. And I'm not from an alcoholic family, and I don't have any brothers and sisters, never did. And my dad would have a glass of beer or a glass of wine and set the glass down, and that was it. My mom didn't drink at all. I was a weird teenager. I would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go down to the big theaters in Detroit and listen to the big bands. I'd have to stand in line, and I'd have about a dozen apples, a dozen oranges, about 10 candy bars, and sit in the front row and make Google eyes at the drummer. Because I had a crush on him. I'm about 14, 15 years old, and you know, the kids today stand in line, or they have those rap parties, or whatever they are. And I'm down making Google eyes, and the drummer can't see me, but I don't know, somehow I got a date with him. And he took me to his hotel room. And he gave me one of those funny kisses. And I split because I thought I'd become pregnant. Well, I don't know if the group from Bathsheba is here. Being of Jewish faith, when you become a woman, you get a whack on your face. And that's all my mom told me about. I knew where the babies come from, but I didn't know about that funny kind of kiss. So, but I did, because of this drummer, I took up music and majored in music in high school. And my major instrument were the drums, so I could communicate with the drummer. But that relationship was over. That big relationship was over. And I had a full-size piano, a player piano. I had a full set of drums, a string bass, a trombone. See, I had a string bass because I didn't care for the violin, so I had choices. And I ended up playing Polish music outside of Detroit. And I could not play the drums sober. During rehearsal I could, but we played 4 nights a week in what they call the beer garden. And the musicians were upstairs, the bar was in the round, and I would stop. On the front window it said you had to be 21 to be there. So somewhere along the line, someone told me to use ink eradicator on my birth certificate in case the cops asked me for my identification. And I'd wear my hair up in high updos and keep it, when I go to sleep at night, I'd roll it, toilet paper all around. Some of the women are identifying here. So I never did look, I guess, 16. I was 16 playing in this beer garden, but the first drink that I would take when I'd go to the bar, we'd start playing at 9, so I'd get there at 7 and have zombies, about 7 or 8 of them. And I'd go upstairs, sit behind the drums, because all of you are going to be looking at me with my gorgeous legs. I had beautiful legs then. I still do. Anyway, one night my mother decided to bring some of her friends to see me play, perform. And she comes up and I'm sitting on a customer's lap. That tells you a little bit about me. And I'd have, 4 nights a week, I'd have to take the full set of drums home. The owner of the bar didn't want the musicians to leave their instruments there. He'd be responsible. So I'd get a favored customer that night to bring me home. And he'd carry up the drums, I'd carry up the cymbals, and we lived on the 3rd floor with no elevator. And as soon as I'd get to the top floor, I don't know what it was, I know it was the drink, I would drop the cymbals and they'd roll 3 flights of stairs down. The loud sound of cymbals clanking individually. So I became the tramp of the apartment, coming home all those hours. And I was bored with Detroit, just bored with Detroit. And I had an uncle living out here, and Manny and Marina had the privilege of meeting my uncle that just died, 99 years old. Anyway, I wanted to come out, so I hocked my drums and left my parents a note. So at 17 years old, I'm already hurting my parents. They gave me everything. They both worked for a living, and they gave this daughter of theirs everything. I wasn't denied anything, and yet I left them a note instead of asking them for the fare to come to California. And en route, the only transportation I could take then was a bus. And this bus took 5 days to get to California. We had to stop in St. Louis and pick up passengers that were coming from New York to California, and in walked this gorgeous hunk with a zoot suit. And his pants were up to his gurgle. He had those long chains like you see in the movies. They haven't shown it for a while, I worked in the play. And he had a big brim hat, but I could see he had gorgeous hair. It wasn't gray yet, until I came along. And he sat down next to me. So every town we stopped at, we would get some booze or beer. And if the state was dry, we'd still find a place to drink. And so the whole 5 days, it was a drunk. We started out behind the driver, ended up in the back seat doing what we had to do, and within 10 days we were married. Wow. So it was a World War II pickup, definitely. I became pregnant, he disappeared. I didn't know he was AWOL. Yeah, so he was taken away from me, and I didn't know this, and so I didn't get to see him until our boy was 21 months old. And then we resumed our marriage. Complete strangers, a young punk like me, with a kid, and he went to work. But he also didn't like went back to Detroit. Rather, I was back in Detroit, and he found me there. Started having, I didn't know that he contacted malaria in Alaska. He was in the Maritime Service. And so Detroit weather was bad. So we moved to Florida for about 9 months. And for 3 months I lived on the beach 11 hours a day. It was fabulous, just fabulous. And he would go to work. And then when the season began down there, the rents were too high in the hotel, so we moved into a place in Miami. And again, Chuck was working, so the landlord, we were in a rebuilt garage for $200 a month at the time. And the Florida Beetles were about that big, and 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm jumping up and down on the bed, because I'm from a home where my mother used to scrub the walls with Clorox. So I couldn't take it there, but the landlord said to me, "Well, watch your son go sightseeing." And this is while my husband's working. Next thing I knew, I'm sitting in a bar not far from where we lived, and my husband is knocking on the window, "Get the hell out of there, get out." So the fights would start. So in our 58-year marriage, 25 of them was a battleground, because we drank together and we snuck together. If I'd find a hidden bottle of his, I'd resent it and run out and get a bottle for me. And yet we drank together. We were dancers. We would go to the Beverly Wilshire Hotel every Wednesday, and the bartender knew us very well. They had live music. So we would buy our first drink, and then once we got on the dance floor, the bartender would just set up the drinks. And as long as it was live music, my husband would go over to the drummer and say, "My wife is a drummer, let her play." And they'd ask for my union card. I didn't have any, so the fights would start, and we were 86 from there many, many times. Always, always. We moved to Culver City. I've got a history of Culver City up and down Washington Boulevard that you wouldn't believe. I've walked from the Marina barefooted on Washington Boulevard in a complete blackout with no shoes, losing my son's car in one of the parking lots there. You identifying down there? And I had nerve enough to get in a car that picked me up to drop me by a telephone, and I called my husband to come pick me up at 2 o'clock in the morning in the middle of Washington Boulevard. Okay, now the fun and the tragic. I'm a good mother, I thought. So I took a part-time job driving a school bus. This is in the 50s. A lot of you weren't born. And I wanted to be home when my son got home from school, so that I had these part-time jobs. And I would drop the last student off. Thank God I never drank it on the bus with the children there. But as soon as I dropped the last child off, I would find an empty lot. I'd have a bottle with me and drink. And in my drinking, I liked to gamble. I thought I could break a bank. So I'd head out to Gardena, legal poker, with the school bus, and end up losing the school bus on a parking lot. I did that quite a few times where my husband and my father had to come find me and the school bus. But I played a little cooler. I thought I'd stay close to home. I'd go to Hollywood Park with the school bus. And I did. And I would get to the park and end up losing the school bus at the park, at Hollywood Park. I've driven up Prairie Avenue, bouncing off of cars, on the opposite side of the street, and never get picked up. Now, the only time I was arrested for public drinking, or whatever they call it, was I was drunk in a cab. And I don't know what I was trying to do to the cab driver, but anyway, I ended up, the only thing I remember is putting my prints down in jail in Van Nuys and then showing up to the court here pleading guilty with the rest of the drunks. On one of the occasions that I lost the bus at Hollywood Park, see, it happened several times. The guard from Hollywood Park brought me about 10 blocks from where I lived and said, "Lady, I can't take you home in the condition you're in. You'll have to walk." Well, I either crawled or walked. I don't remember how I got home. When I got home, there was no wallet in my purse. It came in the mail 3 days later, because when you drive a school bus for the city of Los Angeles, you have to take a highway, or wherever you drive a school bus, the highway patrol, you get the seal on your license. So they may have thought that I worked for the highway patrol, so they mailed it to me. In the meantime, our boy is watching all this action. I had my son in Little League, and I used to buy the refreshments for the Little League games and have a bottle with me. I found a mother that drank like I did, and we would drink together. And never get home sober from a Little League game. So some of you kids may have come from that type of a situation. You'll have to excuse me, the goddamn cigarettes that I haven't kicked yet. And then my son would ask me, Mother, why do you drink so much? And I'd point my finger right at my husband. And then my husband would ask me the same question, and I'd point my finger, it's my son. And never knowing, for any of you who are new, my finger was always pointed at somebody else and never looking at the three that were being pointed back at me. Anyway, this battleground went on. I got to get sober here. In 1968, I had a major surgery. And when I got out of the hospital, my husband made arrangements to take us both to go to Mazatlan. Now, he had started coming to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I would tag along at times when I wasn't too drunk. So I started going to some meetings, but then after the surgery, we went to Mazatlan, and forget about AA. I had no thought of AA down there because all they did was drink, and he was drinking too. He was going to meetings, but he's not down there. And then he started getting active. He got into sponsoring, 12-stepping. He would call central office to see if they had a call. And this, from what was a violent household, when he started going to meetings, they would tell him, step over her. If she doesn't want to go to a meeting, she doesn't want to stop drinking, step over her. So he'd go on a call, and then sometimes he'd ask me to go with him. And I fell in love with 12-step work, but I wouldn't give up the drinking. You know, he was taking me along to set an example how not to be. And then, this is the roughest part of 68. 68 is tragic and gratitude for me. In August of 60, when we came back from Mazatlan, my uncle had left his car for us to use because he was taking a plane back east. And so we had another car to let my son use it. He had his boss's truck. And he was going to a party, and he didn't come home that weekend. And on Sunday afternoon, two big detectives came up to our apartment to tell us that our son was dead. And his body was down at the morgue, and my husband he fainted, and he was put in UCLA for 8 days. And my father and myself went down to identify my son at the city morgue. And the most tragic thing is to see the only kid that God gave me on the morgue. And that was the best excuse for me to keep on drinking. You know, I drank while he was alive. He never saw me sober. From the day one, he never saw me sober. So why should it be any different? And as soon as I hasn't really got into the program on my son's birthday, November the 11th of 1968, he sobered up. And then he got very, very active, and he was going on calls, pulling people out of bars, but sometimes taking me with, and then he started asking me if I wanted to go to some of the institutions. And I'd go to Warm Springs with him on hangovers, and my hands would shake, and the inmates would have to light my cigarette, and I'd throw up green because I'm drinking non-smelling vodka. With funny face, a diet drink. I didn't want to be a fat alcoholic. I knew I was an alcoholic. But I was coming to meetings, and I'd cry at all the meetings. You talked about your kids, you talked about your grandkids, and I would cry. But slowly I was falling in love with AA. But I would always sit. Saturday night was his home group was Malibu in a courthouse. And one of our actors at the time, he's dead now, used to do what I did, you know, tippy around the program. So I'd sit next to him so no one would know which one of us was drinking. He was drinking, I was drinking, but we were at the meeting. Our first roundup in Palm Springs, they used to have the roundup out there in Palm Springs, not out in Desert Hot Springs or wherever. I knew there was going to be dancing because we were dancers. So I put about a little vial filled with vodka. I hated vodka. I just needed the alcohol. And I put it in my cosmetic case so that when we had to get on the dance floor while he was in the shower, I put it down. It was the worst 3 days of my life because I knew all of you smelled that non-smelling vodka. But I did it anyway. Finally, on Chuck's first birthday, I planned a party. And as I said, his home group was Malibu, so all the people were going to come to share his first-year birthday. And I got him out of the apartment early that Saturday night so he could go get his cake, and I was supposed to give him the cake in Malibu. I got him out of the apartment early, and I said, you're going to be in my way, let me set up everything, and then we can go to the meeting, and I'll give you the cake, and then everyone will come back to the house. Well, when he left, I ran to the liquor store and bought a pint of booze and drank it to celebrate his first year of sobriety. Well, when he came home and saw that, he grabbed the keys, called a member of AA to take him to Malibu to get his cake, and he left me there. And I proceeded to call a cab from Palms area to take me to Malibu. But it didn't happen. Downstairs there was our good neighbor's my sister Al-Anon. Oh. And Chuck knocked on the door to tell her to come upstairs so that I wouldn't kill myself. So she did, and she'd have me, they kept dressing me and undressing me, and I'd go to the door for the cab. They'd send the cab driver away. She had called another Al-Anon. So these two beautiful Al-Anons saved my life. Well, he did come back with all the people from the meeting, and we did have a party. And the next day, I went to Ohio Street, and I raised my hand, and I didn't shake, and I didn't throw up the green vial that was coming out of me. And I was home free. And I started getting commitments. My first commitment was the Malibu courthouse cleaning ashtrays, because the jury box was the non-smoker, and in the audience, you could smoke. So this is the way I would do it. I keep my hand, while I was drinking, I keep my hand over my mouth and then put the ashtrays out. But that was the first. The second commitment was the big Brentwood meeting. I used to buy the cookies and the cake for the meeting, and I'd get there at 6 o'clock in the evening. And the first meeting would start at 7. So we weren't allowed to make the coffee. The maintenance man from the church would make the coffee. So I'd go into the kitchen and set up everything and get the cookies ready to be put out. And people were coming to the meeting at about 6 o'clock anyway to get a seat, because he used to house about 500 the first meeting, and they'd have a second meeting at 8:30. But people would come over and say, "Lee, I want a cup of coffee." I'd say, well, they'd ask me my name, and I'd ask their name. So in my first year of sobriety, I knew 1,000 names. I don't know them today, but I knew them then. I had a better memory. Senior moments now are... So I'd always had a commitment that kept me going, just getting to meetings. I loved going to meetings. We were going to 14, and any chance we were convention junkies. Gone to the Denver International, and the famous one was the Montreal with Manny and Rita. I didn't know if they were going or not. Anyway, we ended up in Burlington, Vermont. We flew to Burlington, and then you have to rent a car to go to Montreal. So we're at a meeting in Burlington, and who's there? Manny and Rita. And we rented a car, the four of us, and for 100 miles it was raining from Burlington to Montreal, and three of us are smoking and my husband isn't. The three of us were trying to kill him. Really. I mean, you couldn't even crack open the window. That's how hard you couldn't see. So finally we hit a restaurant where the man could breathe. I love Alcoholics Anonymous, and some of the funny incidences that some of you may have the opportunity of just the experience. One night we were asked to talk out in Chino. There's 3 different institutions out there. I forgot which one it was, maximum or minimum. And we were supposed to meet the panel leader at one of the restaurants, either the Pomona or the Pomona or the San Bernardino. They both had the same restaurants. So we ended up going to a different one. I mean, the same restaurant, but in a different location. And no panel leader. Didn't show up, so we figured, well, maybe we'll meet him by the gate of the institution. We get to the institution, and the lights are shining down on us. And you can see the shotguns from down below. And we're yelling up there. They can't hear us. We're yelling up there. We're from AA. We're here for a meeting. And this went on for a while, and they kept shining the light. And I figured, uh-oh, and we're freezing. It was in January. I don't know how long we stayed down there, but I know I was frozen, and I was more fearful of the guns and the light that they were shining on us. So we finally, the panel leader came, and we were able to go in. And I'm the only woman. What have I got to share with these young kids? But it worked, you know, it worked because many of them in there had drunken mothers. So someone, if I got to someone, it was worth everything. And in another incident, we were up in San Luis. We were invited to go to Fresno. This is funny, very funny. And they paid for our way, you know, to fly up there. And we're talking. Yeah, we were a husband and wife team by now. Now, me first and then my husband. I spoke, and then my husband was speaking, and all of a sudden, it's on a stage, and the curtains are opening up, and someone's head is in. It's time to stop. It's time to stop. It isn't 10 o'clock yet. They wanted to set it up for a bingo game. Get off. Anyway, the people that invited us up, one of the women, one of the girls, was secretary of a panel in a women's jail. And this is across the street from where we were speaking that night, Fresno. And where's the meeting? In a laundry room. There's 3 washers, 3 dryers, and this is what we're sitting on. And you know, I'm not prejudiced or anything like that, but there were 3 dykes and me. Funny. But I had the privilege of starting to, the best gift of all is my sobriety and sharing my life with a woman alcoholic. Well, damn it, I had, you know, the jealousy. I had a good-looking husband, and I figured everyone, and when I drank, I was jealous. But in sobriety, I learned to love women. Just learned to love women because we share our experiences, our feelings, our hope, our strengths. This morning I am now, I've got a title, I'm a great grand sponsor. Wow, that's a good feeling, but also it's getting older at the same time. You know, we use, thank God, I've been secretary of a lot of meetings and started a lot of them. Before my parents got ill, I tried to start a women's stag on the beach on a Tuesday for women that didn't have work or their children, they couldn't afford a babysitter. And that was started sometime in the 70s. And the amazing thing is, I was curious. I took a walk down where this meeting was about 3 weeks ago, and it's still going on. See? So it's like it's planting the seed where someone else can take over. You just can't hold on. And last Wednesday, I was privileged in, I changed all my meetings, and I'm privileged that I was elected and given the gift of being a trusted servant on a Wednesday night. So I'm going back to basics for me, because they kept me in good stead all these years. I didn't share my last drunk with you. I stayed, after that time in Ohio Street, and I raised my hand, I stayed sober for 22 months. And then somewhere along the line, a resentment came in. And I didn't air it with my sponsor. Oh, and by the way, my sponsor said you can't drink because your drinker is broken, if you can remember that. Your drinker is broken. My sponsor's been dead for a while. Anyway, where was I? Oh, my last drunk. I was secretary of a Sunday night meeting, and I planned my drunk. Now, I'm in the book, it may say slip, but or relapse. I planned my drunk because of this resentment that I didn't share with my sponsor or anyone else or the girls I was sponsoring. And I was secretary of a Sunday night meeting in Westwood, and I set up the meeting all by myself at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The meeting didn't start till 8 o'clock. And I set up the tables, and I lifted the 100-cup coffee maker, and I proceeded to drink this pint of booze and decided to throw it in the ladies' lounge of this church. But through my drunkenness, I realized that the maintenance man is going to tell the pastor that you AA people are drinking at your AA meeting. And then you won't have a meeting. So what I did, I left a note for the co-secretary that I wouldn't be there. And I didn't say why. And I took the bottle and I flew to Las Vegas. What else does a drunk do? In a blackout. So when I get to Vegas, I called collect to my wealthy cousin in Michigan, and the stupid jerk wired me back $500. And I paid for a hotel room, and the rest I blew on the crap table and went to sleep, or passed out. I never went to sleep, I passed out. When I came to the next morning, you know, all I saw that night, and I can still see it, is dead eyes in Vegas. Just dead eyes for those that are drinking. That's all I could see, and I knew that my eyes were dead too. So when I got up the next morning or came to, I walked to the bar and I ordered a drink and paid for it because the night before everything was free except use the crap table. And I took the drink and I gulped a little bit and I set it down and left the drink. That for the first time in my life, I did not finish the drink. And I flew back to Los Angeles, and on the 45-minute ride, I'm thinking, uh-oh, broken ribs, broken nose, and the famous words of a spouse or a boyfriend or girlfriend, why'd you do this to me again? But when I walked into the apartment, Chuck was sitting on the couch, and he said to me, Lee, do you want to go to a meeting? He didn't say where, why, or what. Do you want to go to a meeting? And that was October the 5th of 1971. And no thought of drinking, thank God. In the meantime, both parents saw me sober. My husband and I, he passed 2 years and about 4 months now. The only one that hadn't seen me sober is my son. And I try desperately for him to see me sober. I go every Sunday to the cemetery and put fresh flowers down. It's a hell of a way to go. Both parents died 2 months apart, buried them. And my husband, part of him is in the ocean, part of it is in the bedroom. And I try to go every day down to the pier and talk to him and let him know that I'm still sober and I'm hopefully remain sober a day at a time. My journey today is having fun, having dinner with Audrey on Saturday night. That's our date night. Yeah, it was very good. And we both love men, see, so we have fun. Yeah, I still love men. Especially Jack. Whoa. Oh, have I got a story? Have I got a couple of minutes? Yeah. One day, well, I met this gal at a meeting, and I can't remember where. Anyway, she was a mud wrestler. Remember her? And she had a body to kill. But she also, beside mud wrestling, she was doing other things, like driving a red Corvette. You know what I'm talking about? Anyway, she lived in one of these big complexes about 4 blocks from me. And I didn't know that her John, who used to find her customers, anyway, he brought her over one day and brought her clothes, a great big carton of clothes, and I'm in a 1-bedroom apartment. And he drops her off. He says, I can't handle her anymore. And we had a crummy manager at the time. I'm now the crummy manager. And I open up the box to give her some clothes because she's knocked out. And in it, they're all G-strings. And I knew I could only keep her for a few days because this manager would raise my rent. So I kept, I was taking her to meetings, and somewhere along the line, two of my girls that I sponsored, one had her for a week, and another one, because they never knew what 12-step work was. I said, this is your form of 12-stepping by keeping her, because we can't afford to put her in a motel. I'm afraid she'll drink. We want her at meetings around the clock. And then somewhere along the line, I think Jack got hold of her. But she stayed sober. She married a guy that used pot. An amazing thing is, I think her mother lived down the street here, Roosevelt. She stayed sober about 13 years, and then at a women's retreat a couple of weeks ago, I met one of her best friends who was the godmother of her second daughter, and said that she went out. And the husband has custody of her, but she had stayed sober because I spoke. Rita went with me to the meeting out at the studio that one year. Now I remember who went with me, and she was secretary. Cindy was secretary. I don't know if she remembers that. Well, anyway, to bring Jack back into life with Cindy, I haven't been up there to see the pictures. Whatever. It's none of my business. The kind of drunk. Well, see, any of you guys would come up to my girls. They were my girls. I was like the madam. And if you try to lay out or try and make out with any of the newcomers that I had, you'd hear it from me. I was not afraid. And once I got sober, I had the self-worth. I was so proud to have these girls nice, fresh, clean. Leave them alone, or you'll hear from me. And I'm the kind of a drunk that used to hide my bottles in my bra and in my girdle and in my crutch. And I don't have to do that anymore. See? So, thank you, Jack, for allowing me to share. It's a privilege, and I love you for it.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious. Do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
remote control is connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. If that shows up, the gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.